Hello again and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Karina Joy and I talk about books. So today I am going to share with you 6 books that I have recently read. Okay, so I talked about this a couple of videos ago that I'm really struggling with the month-to-month time frame. I don't know what it is. I know it's probably just me, but I get overwhelmed and I feel like I have to finish it in that month, and it caused this major reading slump for me. So I decided that I'm going to ditch that style and I won't be doing monthly wrap-ups, but what I will do is every few books I will update you on what I've read and let you know every now and then, not really a TBR, but maybe like a pile of possibilities of things that I'm looking forward to reading, stuff like that. But as far as structured TBRs and structured monthly wrap-ups, I'm not going to be doing those anymore. I'm hoping this format works better for me, and I hope that you guys also enjoy it as well, because I really want to create content that you enjoy watching. So with that being said, we will start talking about the books that I have read recently. So I will be talking about these in the order that I read them. Actually, they're all 5-star books. Now, I'm trying to decide. I could possibly be extremely generous with my star ratings, and maybe that's why they're all 5-star, but I've just really enjoyed all 6 of these books. So I don't know. I know at some points I don't have 5 stars. I think these were just some really good books, and I just happened to read them right in a row. It's kind of throwing me off though, because I'm thinking maybe I'm too easy on people, but anyway. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Heidi by Johanna Spyri. This was published in 1880, and it is a children's classic. So this book is about a little girl named Heidi who is an orphan. She initially lives with her aunt for the first 5 years of her life, and her aunt wants to go on to bigger and better things, and she cannot be burdened with a child in order to do that. So she takes her up to the mountains where her grandfather lives. Now, her grandfather is a very tortured soul. He was in the war, and he did and saw a lot of things that made him feel like he wasn't worthy to be a part of society. So he has essentially isolated himself away from everybody. Because of that, people are very upset with the aunt for taking Heidi up there. They feel like Heidi will be mistreated, and they're very concerned. So when she gets there, she's not sure what to expect. She finds a very gruff old man, but he's actually very kind to her. So she, in the midst of living with him, grows quite a bit. She learns a lot, and she brings joy to the grandfather as well as a family that lives close by. And what I love about this story, at one point in the story, the aunt comes back and takes her to work with a wealthy family as essentially like a friend for their daughter who is an invalid, and they take her there against her will and against the grandfather's will, and she goes to Frankfurt and works for this family. While she's there, she learns how to read, and that family gains the joy that she brings everywhere she goes, and she learns so much while she's there, but she's so homesick, and eventually they figure out why she's homesick and they bring her home. And when she comes home, she's able to present the gospel to her grandfather in a way that he hadn't heard it before. And because he's such a gruff old man, I loved watching her talk about the gospel to him and him receiving it. And it's just not something that you see a lot in books, and I really enjoyed it. So hopefully I didn't share too much or give any spoilers. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. It was 5 stars. Super, super, super cute. Definitely gonna reread it. Yeah, you need to pick this one up if you haven't already. The next one I read was Between Shades of Grey. Now, this copy I got pre-owned and it is falling apart, but I absolutely loved this story. This is about a 15-year-old Lithuanian girl whose name is Lena, and she and her family end up becoming deported by the Soviet government because at this time the Soviets wanted to essentially rid the land of anybody that was against them and also people that were not of their race or blood or creed, I guess. And so this was their way of essentially trying to have a genocide without being as messy as a genocide is. So they pushed people out and hoped that they wouldn't end up coming back, I guess. So this story explores Lena's travel on a train with lots of people that are also imprisoned. It talks about how terrible that was and how they handled it, and it just kind of opens your eyes to see that life isn't always guaranteed to be pretty, and sometimes unfortunately things like this happen. I remember when the pandemic started up and everybody wanted to wear, or they wanted you to wear masks. I saw this meme and I felt like it was so wrong and insensitive, and it was a train with train cars and basically talking about if you choose to wear a mask, you're essentially just walking onto a train and letting them take you to a concentration camp. And I felt like that was very, very wrong, because these people didn't just walk onto a train. They were arrested. They had machine guns in their faces. They had their children being threatened of being killed. You know, and it just is so much bigger than what a lot of people, I think, see it as. It's very serious, and it isn't something to be joked around about. These people suffered, and it wasn't by choice. But this book is a very good look at how this all happened, at least in Lithuania. There's other countries where things like this happened, especially Germany. I'm not sure. I know Mussolini was part of Italy. I don't know if he did anything like this. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of people have had scenarios like this, and it is not by choice. That's my little soapbox. Sorry. But anyway, this book is heartbreaking. It'll make you cry. I don't want to say a lot about it because it's really good just to read it, go into it unknown. But yeah, 5-star. You need to pick this one up as well. Okay, so the next one I read is Dragon Slippers by Jessica Day George. Now, this is a story that I read with my children, and we are in love with this, and we're continuing on in the trilogy. Okay, so this is a story about a young girl named Krill, and in order to summon a knight to save her, her aunt sacrifices her to a dragon. Now, her idea is that the knight will come and save her and will have to marry her, and then their lives will be better. Creel doesn't think that there's any dragons, and so she's not real worried about it. But when she goes into this cave, she actually discovers a real dragon, and she ends up bargaining for her life and ends up with a rather amazing treasure, a pair of blue slippers that she thinks are very simple, but they actually are magical. This is a story that has some amazing friendships, some amazing betrayals, and it is an amazing read. 5 stars. We all enjoyed it. You should pick it up if you love dragons and fairy tales and things like that, because it is a fantastic new fairy tale. And I absolutely love Jessica Day George's writing, and I can't wait to read more of her stuff. The next book that I read is called A Stitch in Time. Now, this book is by Penelope Lively. It was published in 1976, and it is an extremely cute story about a little girl who goes on vacation with her family. She goes to this area that has a beach, and she's able to find all kinds of fossils, and she makes friends. But the coolest thing about the story is that she finds out that in the house that they're staying in, that is currently a hotel, there was a little girl that used to live there back over 100 years ago. And she's intrigued by the fact that a little girl was taking up the same space as she was so long ago. And she ends up having, it's really hard to explain. So it's kind of like time travel. She can hear things from that time period. And so she's hearing a dog bark, and she keeps hearing a swing that doesn't exist, and she hears piano playing that no one is playing, and it's just a really interesting story. It's very cute. It has an element of suspense. She feels like the little girl must have died in a horrible way, and that's why she can hear the things that are going on. So it's all about her learning about this little girl's life and what happened to her and where she ended up. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love things with a little bit of sci-fi elements, and this had time travel. I don't know what you would consider it. I would have to say it's sci-fi and time travel, although some people might consider it like magical realism. But I really loved this story, and I plan on reading it to my kids. I listened to this one on audiobook and loved it, but I want to get the actual book and read it to my kids because I know they'll enjoy it with all the fossils and things like that. So check out A Stitch in Time by Penelope Lively. Okay, so the 5th book that I have read recently is called A Journey to Joburg. Now, it's called Journey to Joburg, a South African Story. I read this as part of the Read Your Book Shelf Challenge that Chantel from Chantel Reads All Day is putting on. The month of April was read a book that has all your initials in the title. My initials are CJB, and it was so hard to find one, but I finally did. So J is in Journey to Joburg. You have B in Berg, and then a South African story. I found the C in the African part. So I got it all. It took forever to find one with all my initials, but I did. And I'm pleasantly pleased. So I didn't know anything about this book going in. I basically just picked it because it fit the prompt. But it was such a cute story and a heartwarming story, and one that kind of sheds light on the hardships that were going on in South Africa at this time. Okay, so this book is set during apartheid in South Africa. Now, this is a story, a part of history that's always intrigued me when I was a teenager, there was a movie that came out about apartheid, and it was exchange students. Um, so a black girl from South Africa. Oh, no. A black girl from America wants to host a exchange student from South Africa. And she assumes that this girl is going to be black. And when she gets there, she's white. And they're in the middle of apartheid in South Africa. And so this movie just kind of talks about all the dynamics between the two. And they kind of learn how to love each other, even though their skin color is different, all of that. So ever since then, I have been intrigued by apartheid. And so books set during that time interest me. So this story is set during apartheid. It is about two little kids that live in a village outside of Johannesburg. So their mother works in Johannesburg and they live in the village. Their mom only comes home every now and then, and that's the way it was then. In order for black people to survive, they had to work, sometimes for rich families, and didn't always get to take care of their kids, things like that. So these little kids live in the village, and they are kind of sheltered a little bit from the differences between white and black. And they end up, their little sister is a baby, and she ends up getting very, very sick. And their aunt and their grandma are just at their wits' end as to what to do with her. The little girl and boy decide that it is time to go get their mother. So they sneak out because they know that their grandma's not going to let them take this journey, and they travel to find their mom. In the midst of their traveling, they come across quite a few different types of people that help them, and they learn a little bit about how their race is being treated, and it raises questions for them that they didn't have before because they didn't understand the differences between the two. And so they find their mom, all of that stuff. I'm not going to tell you the end of the story because, you got to read it. But it's a really good story that talks about a children's perspective during apartheid, and I really did enjoy it. I listened to it. Yeah. I don't think I told you who wrote that. I'm getting better, but there are times where I still don't say the author's name. Okay, so this story, A Journey to Joburg, is by Beverly Nadeau. It was a super cute book. Check it out. Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about is My Life with the Liars. Now, my children are notorious for losing my physical copies of books. I literally just saw this book sitting on a table about 2 hours ago, and now I can't find it. So I would have had the actual copy of it, but here we are. So this book is by Kayla Carter, and it is about a little girl who grew up in a cult. Now, I loved this book because a lot of times when we read about cults or when we watch movies about cults, the person has already decided that they have doubts and that they don't believe in what's going on. This little girl gets taken out of the cult, and she still believes everything that has to do with the cult. And so she feels like she's been kidnapped and that she needs to make it back, or she's going to end up not being saved, essentially. And it's all about what goes on in the cult. So you hear little things throughout the story about her condition, how skinny she is. She has bruises everywhere. Things that she doesn't really notice and doesn't really understand are wrong. And she just has to kind of come to terms with the fact that people in the outside world that she's been taught were liars her whole life are actually not necessarily liars, and that the people in the inside world, which is where she's lived and believed her whole life, those people are liars. And so she has to go through the contrast of figuring out that her cult is actually not true. I absolutely loved it. It goes back and forth between the present timeline and her being in the cult, and it talks about their beliefs and all the little intricacies of a cult. When people write about cults and they add so much detail, I appreciate it because I'm very intrigued by cults in general. And so reading a book about one, I want to have all the details, even though it's fictitious and it's not a real cult. I want to have that essential, it's not really world building because it's not fantasy, but I don't know, where they build on this religion that isn't real. I appreciate when when an author is able to do that. And I feel like Kayla Carter did a really good job creating this religion and showing how people can get wrapped up in a cult. Yeah, so this was a really good book. Again, I gave it 5 stars. You need to check it out because it's really good. I have had an amazing time reading lately. I have those 5-star books and then more that are on the list for my next reading recent reads video. And so yeah, I'm gonna see how we go through the whole month and see if I have more 5 stars. But so far I've had quite a few in a row, and I feel a little bit like on top of the world because having that many 5 stars is awesome. So anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling because I feel like I've talked a lot. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you've read any of these books, please comment below and let me know what you thought of them. And I will see you in the next video.